Hello friends, and welcome to Escaping the Mouse with your host, me, Breck Roll. Alright, this one's going to be a little different today because this was actually inspired by something Jordan said to me. Every once in a while, Jordan will give me suggestions on how to make my vlog better, whether it be, some idea on how I can manipulate the algorithms in YouTube to get them to promote my videos more, or sometimes just giving me great ideas on things I should do vlogs on. He, for instance, gave me the suggestion that I should go do the JFK video a few years ago, and that three-part video, two of those three videos are my number one and number two video in terms of views ever, and I still get hundreds of views on those videos. So I've learned, Jordan knows a lot about doing videos on YouTube, and so I'd be kind of stupid to not listen to him when he gives me free advice, right? Well, he contacted me a couple nights ago and was talking about the last video I'd done. That was the one where I made the macaroni and cheese in the Instant Pot, and I did a little something kind of different at the beginning of the video because I'd kind of noticed I hadn't done a bunch of cooking vlogs lately and nature vlogs lately, and that was all kind of started about the point where I decided I just couldn't do a scheduled vlog 3 days a week like I was doing, in addition to keeping a full-time job going. So I, at that point, kind of started cutting out some of the vlogs that I felt I was kind of phoning it in, if you will. And that included some of the cooking videos, and that included some of the other stuff that I didn't think it was as good as maybe I could do. Well, Jordan replied to that part and says, when I've talked to people about who watch your vlog, why they watch your vlog, they say it's because they like you and they like seeing what's going on in your life, and so they don't really see your hiking vlogs or your cooking vlogs or any of the vlogs that might be considered lesser vlogs as you phoning it in. They kind of see that as, yeah, we like him, we just want to see where he's going with this and how he's living his life and all that, and how things are going. And I think maybe I was a little bit more receptive to that message because the video I did before, where I talked about the video that I was producing at work and some of the obstacles I was running into, when I got that vlog done and when I uploaded it, I said, it seems to me, based on kind of what people watch from me, that this might be an actual good view getter. There might be a lot of views on this one, and I just thought, just based on what I've seen in the past, and so when that video did come out, it did do very well. Within 4 or 5 hours of it going live, it already had twice as many views as most of my videos usually do in the time. Within 24 hours, that number jumped to 3 times what it normally was. So I think when Jordan said this, that people watch my vlogs because they like me, it kind of maybe I was a little bit more receptive to the message at the time because I was already kind of thinking the same thing to myself and deciding how I should maybe change it and to take advantage of that, if you will. I don't know, maybe taking advantage of it isn't the best word. Maybe maximize the potential of this, but it was also partly, I think, because I chose kind of a clickbaity title. It's I called something to the effect of when my two worlds collide, or something like that. That's going to create a bunch of curiosity. What's this about? I should probably think about whether I should do that again. It's a little bit manipulative, but it is what it is. But he made a suggestion, and I've been thinking about it for the last couple of days now, and I think it actually would be a good idea. He said, kind of based on the fact that people do like you, it might be a good idea to do a video where you kind of recap everything that's happened to you since you left California, and then when you get to the end of it, ask yourself, would I do this again? And I've been thinking about that for the last few days. I realized right off the bat it was a good idea, but I've been kind of chewing away at it for the last few days, and I decided I kind of wanted to do that and maybe build on it a little bit, because I've got I've got every video I've ever shot on a hard drive in there. So maybe it isn't just going to be me talking about it, but me actually doing little flashback clips on this. So here we go. So basically, just just to go way back to the beginning, I went to college at Golden West College, took a recording engineering class with the goal of ultimately being a recording engineer. Turns out that just led me into the compact disc field, and I got a job making compact discs in about the mid '80s, and was very successful at that. Was with them for 11 years. Didn't really make a lot of money because I'd started out kind of entry level, and while I'd grown a little bit, I hadn't gone into any kind of management level. So at one point, towards the end, I was doing a lot of trade shows, and a lot of competitors started becoming aware of me, and I started getting job offers from other companies. A company called PDO tried to recruit me and get me to move to Salt Lake City at one point. I wasn't really interested in that one because it wasn't really going to be that much better than what I was making at that point. But a little later, Warner Brothers contacted me, and they asked me to come over to their facility in California and be their mastering manager. And that was a major step up. I'd be going from making, what was I making? Probably $13, $14 an hour, up to having a salary that was probably almost twice the amount I was getting at the time. It was about that time I also bought the house, and so those two things worked together. I'd actually, when I got to the point where I was qualifying for the house, my dad had originally said that, he'll co-sign the loan behind me. Turns out that by the time I got to Warner Brothers, I was making enough money over there that I was able to qualify for the loan on my own. And so that was a good thing. And really that set me up for really almost the whole rest of my life, because I was able to hold on to that house even when things started going south for me money-wise. Warner Brothers was sort of the peak where I was, and then I stepped down to making maybe 2/3 in the next job where I was working for a little mastering house, and then I bounced back up again when I was with a company called ODC for a while, and then I went down to Disney, and things went way downhill on that. But I stayed with them in the hopes that Disney was a good company. Hopefully that something would come up for me. It was funny when during orientation they actually told those of us in the parade support department that they didn't call it a glass ceiling, but that there was sort of a glass ceilings that parade support was never going to be able to break past. And it's like, well, I've done it before. I've done things that I was told I shouldn't be able to do. You know what? I'm going to keep working at it. I'll keep punching away at it and see what happens. And worst case scenario, maybe I'll transfer to another department and do better there. See, at that point, I still like California. I still wanted to be there, and Disney seemed like a good company to work for, at least at the time. As time went by, though, I kind of lost my faith in the place, and last 3 or 4 years I was there, I was constantly saying, oh yeah, I got to get out of here. I got to leave this place. I'm so over Disney. And it got to the point my friends over there heard it so many times, they just kind of rolled their eyes whenever I said it. But in July of 2018, I had a particularly bad day at that point because somebody I'd trained to do a job failed to do the job. They had a panic attack when they had to do it under pressure, and when they got called into the management office to explain what happened, he basically rolled over at me and said that this was all my fault, that I didn't teach him how to do it. Based on that, Disney took my training knowledge away, my ability to train people away, and at that point that really infuriated me. I almost quit on the spot, but I kind of held it together and says, okay, this is the end though. I'm leaving. I'm going to sell my house. I'm going to fix up my house. I'm going to sell my house, and I'm moving to Texas because I've been planning on moving to Texas for a long time, or at least saying I'm going to, and this is it. This is the final straw. This is the thing. I need that little push to say, yeah, this is it. I'm over it. And so I did that, and a couple months later, the company decided that they were going to shut down all parades on Disney California Adventure side because I don't know, for financial problems. I don't know. I don't know what the issue is, but the decision was made. Sorry, my chair is turning here a little bit. The decision was made that there weren't going to be any parades in Disney California Adventure for the full year. When they got done with the Christmas season, that was it. The parade that I usually did for the full year, that wasn't going to happen. There weren't going to be any of the little side shows, and nothing was going to happen until next Christmas. And at that point, it's like, okay, well, I'm just going to take this time, and I'm going to use this time and get my house all fixed up, and we're going to sell it. And that was sort of the thing that happened. Now, a couple months later, like I said, I knew I wanted to come to Texas, but I wasn't exactly sure where. I kind of looked at the Google Maps, satellite view, and realized that the west side of Texas is really brown, and the east side of Texas is very green. So I knew I wanted to kind of be on the center to the east side of the state. And so I started looking at different cities in the area, see what was there, look to see who had kind of a decent industrial base, so there'd be good jobs. I'd always done manufacturing, and that was sort of my thing. And so that's sort of where I figured I'd be getting back into. There aren't going to be any Disneyland parks here, so that's not going to be an option. And I was sort of over that anyway. And also because I knew Texas was going to be a lot hotter and a lot colder than it was in California, I didn't really want an outdoor job anyway. So even another amusement park wasn't going to really be an option. But I decided I wanted to come here and look around the state and try and figure out where it was I wanted to move. And so I came here in, I don't know, late January, early February of 2019, and spent a week here and traveled to different cities. I was looking at Dallas and Fort Worth. I ruled those out almost immediately because that was too much big city, which is what I was sort of trying to get away from. My grandmother on my mom's side, for most of the time while I was growing up, lived in a tiny little town in central Minnesota called Bram. And I always kind of loved the small town feel of that. So I think I was sort of looking for something like that. Something small enough to kind of have the small town feel, but big enough to have everything I'd want, including, the potential for good jobs. And so I came here and, like I said, looked at Dallas and Fort Worth, ruled those out. I was going to visit a place called Longview, which is over almost on the Louisiana border. And I went there, wasn't really that impressed with it. Seemed, granted it was the middle of winter and everything was brown and dying and all that, but I didn't really find anything that really caught my attention there. And the next day, or I think actually when that night when I got back, Jordan texted me, and because he knew I was in Texas looking at this, and he knew almost immediately when I decided the previous summer that I wanted to leave Disney, that he'd been kind of pressuring me to start my own vlog, because he'd started his vlog a couple years ago and was doing really, really well at it. And he thought, the idea of me leaving California to start a new life in Texas, that would be an interesting vlog. And he, like I said, he kind of kept the pressure on for a few months after that. And when he started texting me when I was in Texas that one night, he put a full court press on me. You got to start doing this. This is going to be something that I think will be a great vlog. In fact, he was giving me examples of other people that had done kind of similar things and had turned them into successful vlogs. He talked about this one guy who started vlogging when he became homeless and was living out of his car, and started vlogging on telling the story of that. And I guess he got really successful and then got complacent or something like that. And I guess later on it kind of faded and, went to nothing. But, at that point, I really started thinking about it a little bit. The idea of getting on camera to me at that point was really terrifying, though. I've never really liked seeing myself on camera. I didn't like hearing my voice on camera. Didn't like hearing recordings of my voice. So that was a really terrifying thing. But I actually did start doing my first vlog about a month later in early March. And at that point, I kind of introduced myself to my viewers, and started talking about the different things I was doing, preparing to sell my house. And a couple months later, I sold the house and I left California for the final time on May 11th of 2019. And Jordan chose to accompany me with her, and we did a lot of fun vlogging on the way. And I came here, I got my apartment, I started, wandering around looking at some of the things in my new town, trying to learn about it. Learned about the Waco Suspension Bridge, and we went over to the Mammoth Museum and the Dr. Pepper Museum, started checking out cemeteries, having a lot of fun doing that and kind of building up the vlogs and becoming a little bit more confident with myself and all that. And my original plan was that I was going to come to Texas, and the original plan was that within 3 to 6 months I'd have my job. Because I figured, I kept hearing how easy, how many jobs there were available in Texas and all that. So I figured I'd get one really quick. That was the only part of the plan that didn't really work according to plan. It took a little longer. It took me about 9 months to get that first job. You recall I applied for several different kinds of jobs. I applied for a job at the local ABC affiliate, and that didn't work out. I applied for a job at Ferguson Plumbing. That didn't really work out. I tried for a job at HEB. That didn't happen. But about the same time that I didn't get the job at HEB, I got an offer at this company that I actually ended up taking the job with. And I talked to the boss a couple times on the phone, and then he called me in for an interview, and I could tell after the interview that I'd done really well. And it wasn't long after that I got informed that I actually got the job, and was very, very excited about that. That was also the point where my dad was starting to go downhill, and it was really sad that he didn't ever get a chance to, come visit me in Texas or hear about how well I did on the job. But he got a chance to hear that I'd gotten the job, and so I was very happy about that. I got a chance to tell him all about it and what I was going to be doing, at least what I knew that I was going to be doing, because I never actually really knew entirely what the job entailed until like the first week in the job, because the first week I was there, it was orientation, and so that was just in a conference room in the front of the building. We didn't even go to the back area into the manufacturing area until like the third or fourth day, where I saw for the first time where I'd actually be working. So I couldn't ever tell him that, but as you recall in that one, he died on March 1st of 2020, and then the next morning I had to start that job. So that was an interesting few days, and fortunately I think the work kind of helped me kind of forget about what had happened, and it gave me an opportunity. I ended up calling my mom every night, letting her know what had happened that previous day and all that. And at that point I started, I still had kind of the little chunk of cash that I brought with me from the house sale in California, and I'd been basically supporting myself on that. Well, now I had a job and was able to actually kind of support myself without having to tie into this money that I'd brought with me. And so once we got going, once it seemed that I was doing really well, and I probably should have waited 6 months before I made the decision, but after about 2 months, I had realized that, yeah, I like this job, I can do this job, I'm doing well at this job. I made the decision at that point to start looking at houses, and it was about 4 months after I started the job that I actually moved into the new house, but actually became a homeowner again about 2.5 months later, in the middle of June, when I found this place, made an offer on it, and it became mine. And so that was really exciting. That was a big move, because I was. You remember that apartment that I was in? That place was a dump. And yeah, okay, I got a lot of great fix-it vlogs out of that, and left them a much better place than I ended up getting initially. But I hadn't been in an apartment in more than 20 years, and I didn't like sharing walls with the neighbors, and that wasn't a lot of fun. So it was great to be back in my own house and also get to the point where I could start, decorating it the way I wanted to do. And that was also fun because, that was one of the things I enjoyed about being a homeowner in California too, is that was my place and I could do whatever I wanted in there. And hadn't been able to do that for a long time, and that and the combination of having to deal with all the drama from the neighbors in the apartment, so I was just ready to get out. So, that was probably a factor in me pushing the let's get a house quicker than I probably should have, but it worked out okay, and the job continued to be successful for me, and had a lot of great experiences and things that I got to do that were kind of fun here. I remember like about a year after I moved into the house, we had what the locals refer to as one of the most powerful snowstorms that they remember in Texas in their entire life. Basically, there was about 4 inches of snow. Basically, almost every year I've been here, there's been a little bit of snow that falls each winter, but it's usually the kind of stuff that it falls for an hour or two and then, it's gone within half a day. So, this was the first snow that I ever ran into that stuck for more than a few hours. It was snowy and slushy and cold for about 3 or 4 days afterwards, and that was fun because I've never lived any place where it snowed like that. It never snowed like that in California. I'd been in California in places when it was snowing. I'd been in Minnesota, but there's something about being at your own house when that happens, and just being able to kick back in your house and enjoy it from there. So I love stuff like that, and of course how much I love it when it rains here, and so I've gotten an opportunity to shoot a lot of video of the great electrical storms that we get when we're here and all that fun stuff, and continued to plug ahead at work, and things continued going well there, and then the one of the leads in the department decided to transfer to another department, and all of a sudden I got this major promotion, which was more responsibility, a lot more money, and that really put me in a good position where now I've been able to really go crazy on some of my own personal passions. I've been a rock hound since I was a kid. I mean, I remember, when my family would go visit Lake Superior when I was 8 or 9 years old for family vacations, and I'd find all these great rocks that along the shore of the lake, and I got some of those rocks to this day. I took some geology courses in college because I like rocks, and I brought home rock souvenirs from some of the field trips we went there, and those were always great, and I've got a bunch of those, and I had a few amethyst chunks and quartz crystal clusters and stuff like that I'd had for a while, but I never really had enough expendable income that I could actually start pursuing my passion for rocks and stuff like that. And when I got the lead position, that really started making a big difference there. It actually started a couple months earlier when I attended that rock and mineral show and ended up bringing home some of the first really nice new specimens that I'd picked up in probably decades. And then I found Gallery 11, and that became kind of a regular place. And then, at that point I had, just a little bit of expendable income, so I was just buying little bits and pieces of things there. Well, when I got the lead promotion, that really increased the amount of money I had for that kind of thing, and some of the specimens I started picking up started getting bigger and more impressive. Now, fortunately, like I said before, I was happy that my dad lived long enough to know that I'd gotten the job, because he'd been really concerned that I was making a one-way trip, before I moved to Texas. He'd said a number of times to me that, this is a one-way trip. You go, you can't come back. And so, because, I was counting on the difference of the home values in California to the difference of home values in Texas to be what was going to label me to go. Well, once I'd invested all that in a house in Texas, I wasn't going to be able to go the other way back. So he was very concerned. Like I said, I was happy when he was able to see that I'd gotten the job and that we were on my way. Well, it worked out sort of the same way with my mom. My mom began going downhill a couple years ago, right about the time, right in the months before the whole lead thing came up. And I was really happy because I became a lead in October of 2023, and my mom got a chance to hear about that, got a chance to hear about some of my experiences as a lead at work, and saw that I was doing pretty well at that. And I was happy that she got to find out about all that stuff before she passed away in December of 2023. And so I was lucky, like I said, on both hands. My parents got to see, some aspect of my dream of relocating to Texas, take flight and me be reasonably successful. So anyway, sorry about that. Battery died. I knew this was probably going to be an epic video, and I honestly figured I'd have to stop and restart the recording at some point, because the camera I use has kind of a limit. You can shoot about a 30-minute clip at the same time before you have to stop and create a new file. So I guess I kind of figured that would be the issue, but what ended up happening is the battery died first. So sorry about that. That happens. But anyway, one of the other things I really liked about doing the vlogging, especially here in Texas, was it really got me to get out and check out some of the things that happened around here, to learn about the new city that I live in. And the truth is, in the about 6 years I've been here now, 5.5 years I've been here, I know more about Waco and the kind of general surrounding area than I ever did when I lived in California. So that's partly because of the vlogging and me getting out, having the need to get out there and see different things out there and experience, so I can do these vlogs. And I've gotten to see a lot of really great things here that I've really enjoyed. I mean, some of the few things, once again, going back to the whole JFK video, I got to go into to Lee Harvey Oswald's jail cell. I never would have imagined when I did the JFK vlog that I would actually be in Oswald's cell. But that kind of happened to me. I'll remind you of the story. I was just hoping, I wanted to go to the place where he'd been taken and where he was shot. And I went in there, and they were in the process of transforming it into a museum. And at that point, I was initially told, no, we can't let you in. You'll have to come back when they open up the museum. And I kind of told him who I was and what I was doing. And a minute later, one of the guys that was kind of at the information booth there walked away, and then came back a couple minutes later and says, "Come with me." And he got me I got into an elevator with him, started going upstairs. I figured he was just taking me up to like the museum curator or something like that, so I could make my case to him about whether I would be allowed to get into the museum and look around. And while I was in the elevator, the guy said that, "Oh yeah, this is the elevator that Oswald rode down in right before he was assassinated." And I said, "Oh man, do you mind if I start shooting some video in here?" And he says, "No, go ahead." And so for about the last half of the ride up in the elevator, I was recording. And as I got out of the elevator, I was looking at like some big thick glass windows, and he said, "Yeah, these are the jail cells right here that Oswald was in, where he was held. And by the way, Jack Ruby also." And next thing I know, the guy whips out a key, opens up the glass door, opens it up for me, and allows me to walk in there. And it was like 3 cells. There was like one double cell in the center with 2 singles on each side. And I say, "So which one was he in?" And he says, "The one in the middle." And next thing I know, the guy walks off, and I'm alone in the room, able to basically have 100% access to that. I tell you, I was so surprised and so excited when I got in there. Just couldn't even put into words how cool that was. And that's something that I'll always remember and have really fond memories of. I mean, how many people can say that they've actually been in Oswald's jail cell? So that was really cool. Another video I did that was really important to me. It's No, not probably. It is the most controversial video in my collection. It's the only one that you have to be 18 or over to see. It's the only one that I have. It's demonetized because of its content. And that was the horrific story of the lynching of Jesse Washington. Um, Waco has its dark side, and that was definitely a part of it. A young black man who may have been a little bit mentally challenged, at the low end of the IQ spectrum, was accused of murdering a white woman, and basically he was just given a kangaroo court type trial, and was pulled from the courthouse after the verdict was reached, after like 10-15 minutes or something like that. And the people, just a mob of the people, just grabbed him, and they were going to bring him over to the Waco Suspension Bridge and hang him there. And by the time he got him there, they found out that somebody had set up a fire, started a fire over at the courthouse, and they went and basically burned the guy alive. It was a very disturbing video. It was a hard video for me to do, but I looked online for the story, and I'd only found 2 videos on the subject, and both of them seemed to be more about whipping up racial tensions than just telling a story that really kind of sucked. And so, I went back and forth whether I even wanted to do the video, and ultimately did, and I'm glad I did. And ironically enough, a year or 2 later, I happened to be walking downtown, and out in front of the city hall building, there was obviously some sort of event being set up. I had no idea what it was. And so I went down to the bridge to see if it was back open yet, and it wasn't. And I had made the decision to go see what was going over there by the city hall. And it turned out that there was a historical marker being placed in front of the city hall building commemorating what was called the Waco Horror, which was the lynching of Jesse. And so it was just by coincidence that I happened to be there and got to do a vlog on the whole thing. And it was really amazing. There were a lot of family members from Jesse's family, and a lot of people talking about why it was, what had happened, why it was such a watershed moment. Because the truth is, as horrible as that was, it really started to turn the tables on lynching. Because when the nation saw, what these people in Waco had done to this poor black man, it led to the formation of the NAACP. It led to the first anti-lynching laws in the country, and it did a lot of good. It led to a lot of good. So as horrible as the event was, good came out of it, and I was really happy to be able to be a part, even just a small part of that story, by being there and being able to document that thing. Some of the other fun things I've done while I've been here, obviously I've done a few fun movie locations. It's hard to find a movie that I'm into. Yeah, you can find a bunch of westerns and stuff like that, but I've never really been that much into westerns, so there aren't a lot of movie options that are shot here in Texas. But I found a couple fun ones. Logan's Run, a lot of the scenes from that movie were shot here in Texas, in Fort Worth area. I got to visit the filming locations of another movie I like called RoboCop. That was largely shot in and around Dallas, and so I went to a lot of great places there. One of my favorite movies of all time is called Dazed and Confused, and that was shot in and around Austin, so I got to go check out all that, and that was a lot of fun stuff. And of course, there's a Dr. Pepper Museum here, and there's the Waco Mammoth Museum that you can check out, and the Magnolia Silos. And if you're into kind of the darker end of things, we have the Branch Davidian compound where David Koresh and his followers had their final battle with the U.S. government and got burned to the ground. That place is still there, and I got a chance to go check that place out. That was interesting. I remember I got a chance to see my first total solar eclipse, and that was thrilling. I'd been into astronomy all my life, and I've seen several partial eclipses, but I never got a chance to see one a full one. And turned out the first like 6 months I was here, when I was still in the apartment, I heard about it for the first time, and that was when I went out and bought that solar telescope. And I vowed at that point that, if at all possible, and if I was still vlogging, that I was going to vlog that. And it turns out I was, and I did some technology updates to enable me to connect and do a live stream from the backyard, because normally when I do a live stream I'm in the house and I'm close enough to the router. Well, I had to get the router all the way out there so that I could reliably broadcast in the backyard. And so we practiced that a little ahead of time, and the day came when the eclipse was due, and I was able to be out there the whole time with my little solar telescope, and I live streamed the whole thing, and I got a chance to experience my first total eclipse, and I got it on film and got really great footage of it. I'm really happy with it, and that was one of the thrills of my life to be able to do that. I also got in the process of traveling back and forth from California a couple times. I got to visit a couple places that have kind of always been on my bucket list. I've always wanted to see the Petrified Forest because, of course, I'm a rock nerd, and I've always wanted to see Meteor Crater, and of course that's because I'm also a rock nerd and an astronomy nerd. And of course I visited Carlsbad Caverns, and I visited several caverns around here, Longhorn Caverns, Inner Space Caverns around here. I love going through caves, and gotten a chance to do that because there's all sorts of great caves here in Texas. I remember when I experienced my first tornado warning, where we actually heard the sirens going off. You'd think some California guy hears that there's a tornado warning in the area, and he's got a tornado shelter in his garage. Yeah, he's putting the cats in there, he's putting the tortoise in there, he's going to lock himself in there and wait until it's safe. Now, I was out in the backyard live streaming the thing, so got a chance to see that, and that was a lot of fun. So the reality that there have been some kind of downer sides to living here in Texas, losing my parents and not being able to be there in their final years, but I did get to see them both before they passed, and I have a lot of great memories of them. I miss my friends, and I kind of miss, some of the people I knew in California. I got a chance to talk to one of my friends in California the other day for a couple hours, and it was really great to catch up. And it is kind of sad that I don't, get a chance to see them as much as I would like to. But I've made new friends here. I've made new friends through the vlog. Because so many of you people, you comment all the time, you show up on the live streams every single week. I appreciate the support from you all the time, and I am grateful for that. So we come down to the key question: would I do this again? Yes, based on all the good things that have come out of this, all the good things I've experienced and been able to do, all the new things I've learned, the opportunities I've been given at work to become more successful and move forward and become more valuable to the company. Those have all been good things, and yes, I would without hesitation do this again. So there you go. Thanks for watching, everyone.